Tony McKelty are headed to North Carolina, and we're hopefully headed to the other side of Flagstaff.
Here's the truth no one in Sister Wives production is saying out loud. Kody and Robyn weren't cast as heroes this season. They were served up as the punchline. It seems this season's supposed main characters, Kody and Robyn Brown, have finally achieved what they always wanted: center stage. Unfortunately for them, the spotlight is less flattering than fluorescent lighting in a hospital hallway. The current theory? Production informed Kody and Robyn they'd be the focal point of the season, neglecting to mention that the narrative would be a slow-motion train wreck showcasing their delusion and dysfunction. The editing says it all. Between the awkward attempts to frame them as good parents and the nostalgic flashbacks of Logan actually raising the family, viewers are treated to a masterclass in contrast. One minute, Robyn is meandering across Coyote Pass in that tragic hat, and the next, we're reminded who the true backbone of the family always was, and it wasn't her or her husband's lumberjack cosplay. The production shift is evident. The tone is sharper, the irony thicker, and the patience thinner. One has to wonder if Kody and Robyn have a PR handler whispering redemption arc in their ears. After all, how else did Kody stumble into Special Forces? Was that a network invitation, or just another desperate attempt to extend his 15 minutes before the final fade-out? Meanwhile, viewers endure the nauseating spectacle of Robyn shopping for mansions, purchased naturally with the family fund that mysteriously dried up once the original wives found their independence. Watching her play the tragic victim while accessorizing with ill-gotten gains has all the sincerity of a soap opera villain audition. The real stars of Sister Wives have always been the women who left. Janelle, Mary, and Christine, and their children embody what audiences actually tune in for: growth, resilience, and genuine love. Their family bonds stand in elegant contrast to Kody and Robyn's ongoing pity parade. Kody, ever the self-proclaimed protagonist, still seems convinced the show revolves around his charisma. A delusion as enduring as the Coyote Pass pond, which, incidentally, has about the same energy level. His screen presence now consists mostly of endless monologues and hollow justifications, while the truly dynamic stories belong to the wives and their grown children building new lives. As the series limps toward what feels like its inevitable conclusion, viewers can only hope for one last act: the karmic comeuppance of Kody and Robyn Brown. Ideally, the finale will celebrate the luminous transformation of the original wives, leaving the self-made monarch and his queen of tears to face their kingdom of debt and denial. Viewers have already begun voting with their remotes, skipping every Kody and Robyn segment in favor of literally anything else. But why would they care? The check's still clear. Kody will happily play the fool for a paycheck, clinging to any screen time that might cover another loan payment. When the cameras stop rolling, perhaps Robyn will rebrand herself as a misunderstood martyr, the unwanted favorite, victimized by both husband and religion. Expect a memoir, heavy on melodrama, light on accountability.
Ultimately, no one cares about Kody and Robyn anymore.
Their storyline is as stale as last season's emotional manipulation. The true heart of the show beats in the flashbacks, the moments where Logan, not Kody, embodied what family leadership actually looks like. Because while Kody was busy performing fatherhood for the cameras, Logan was living it every day. And that, ironically, is the legacy Kody will never edit his way out of.
She didn't fail at polygamy. She succeeded at monopolizing Kody.
Season 11, Episode 2 of Sister Wives is an exercise in hindsight so sharp, it's almost prophetic. In that now infamous couch scene, Kody and Robyn sit together, tears flowing, apologies exchanged. Then Robyn delivers one of the most chillingly self-aware lines ever uttered in the series. The success of a plural family depends on the wives' relationships. If we can't make it work, nothing works. At the time, it sounded insightful, perhaps even noble. In retrospect, it was a quiet confession of what was to come. Robyn understood, with startling clarity, that the fragile equilibrium of plural marriage rested not on the husband's leadership, but on the women's ability to coexist. And yet, as those relationships disintegrated, her connection with Kody only deepened. That moment on the couch now feels like the exact point when she realized she didn't need the other wives at all. She could redefine success on her own terms, one where the plural part of the marriage quietly ceased to exist. Her awareness was never the issue. The problem was how she used it. Rather than strengthening the collective, she weaponized her understanding to protect her relationship with Kody, even at the expense of everyone else. Robyn's behavior from the beginning suggested this outcome was inevitable. She never truly integrated into the existing family dynamic. Even during courtship, she drew Kody away from his other wives, sometimes at moments of extraordinary insensitivity, like when Christine was about to give birth and Robyn still demanded Kody's presence for one more goodbye kiss. She would later feign ignorance of his whereabouts, claiming she didn't know where Kody was either, while he spent his nights at her house. Consideration for the other wives, or their children, was never her strong suit. Ironically, the very philosophy Robyn once preached about sisterhood being the foundation of plural marriage was undone by her own inability to live it. The success of a polygamous household also requires independence. Each wife must be capable of managing her own sphere without constant male supervision. Robyn, however, was never comfortable without Kody's constant attention. Her dependence made her both his favorite and his liability. Of course, the fault doesn't rest solely with her. Kody's brand of leadership thrived on division. A husband truly committed to polygamy would work to ensure equity among wives and children alike, fostering cooperation rather than suspicion. But Kody, ever paranoid, preferred his wives isolated from one another. Less collaboration, less risk of rebellion. It's no surprise the system imploded under his management. The Browns' doctrine that polygamy only works if all the wives get along was never divine truth. It was control masquerading as unity. It placed the burden of success squarely on the women while excusing Kody from accountability. As for Robyn, her motives remain an enduring puzzle. If she ever truly desired plural marriage, sabotaging it for the sake of being Kody's singular obsession makes no sense. There's no favorite when you're the only one left. But if she never wanted polygamy at all, then the marriage was always transactional. A ticket to status, money, and a carefully curated public image. Either way, that couch scene stands as the turning point. With one line and one tearful confession, Robyn Brown revealed everything we needed to know. Not about the success of plural marriage, but about the quiet art of dismantling it. Kody Brown isn't bad at communication. He's brilliant at manipulation. The silence is the strategy. At this point, watching the Browns try to handle adult matters feels less like observing a family business discussion and more like being trapped in a middle school group project gone horribly wrong. The Coyote Pass debacle, complete with Kody refusing to call Mary and insisting on funneling messages through Janelle, perfectly encapsulates their collective inability to behave like functioning adults. We're talking about 5 middle-aged people who can't manage a basic email chain. Not an emotional confrontation, not a family therapy session, just an email thread with property updates. Apparently, that's too evolved a concept. Kody's aversion to simple communication isn't incompetence, it's strategy. When he can't control the narrative, he controls the chaos. The man has long thrived on confusion. Keeping everyone off balance ensures that he remains the gravitational center of their dysfunction. Refusing to send an email means no paper trail, no accountability, and endless opportunities to clarify things later with whatever story benefits him most. It's not just immaturity. It's manipulation disguised as aloofness. Even if there were an email chain, Kody would likely only respond to Janelle, forcing her to relay information to Mary like a reluctant messenger in a feud he created. After all, the less direct contact between the ex-wives, the easier it is for him to twist words and shift blame. This isn't about logistics, it's about leverage. Coyote Pass was supposed to be his victory lap, not a shared asset he has to divide fairly. The moment Mary dared to ask for an assessment, you could practically see him short-circuiting, scrambling for a way to talk her out of it. Accusing her of scheming was pure projection. Kody just hates when anyone else tries to read the fine print on his scams.
And of course, there's the classic grifter rulebook. Never put anything in writing. If it's not written down, it never happened. Avoiding documentation allows him to gaslight, deny, and reinvent history as needed. It also keeps his favorite tactic, pitting one wife against another, alive and well. It's difficult to sow distrust when everyone's on the same email thread comparing notes. What makes it all even more laughable is the selective intimacy of it all. Kody can sob on Mary's shoulder, promising to give her away at her next wedding, but can't be bothered to send a text about selling land. The emotional theatrics are free-flowing. The functional communication is non-existent. Then there's the legal irony. Both Janelle and Mary have retained lawyers, yet somehow they're still personally negotiating with Kody. Anyone with a passing familiarity with real estate or common sense knows this should be handled through attorneys. But of course, clarity and process are the mortal enemies of Kody Brown. The more convoluted the discussions, the more he can maintain the illusion of control. Some argue it's unfair to call the original wives stunted when they're up against a master manipulator. And they're right. These women have tried to use email and direct communication. Last season proved that. They get silence or stonewalling in return. Robyn won't engage at all, especially not in group settings after the infamous gift exchange text fallout. And Kody? He's never going to reply all. The man thrives on confusion and verbal chaos, spinning a different story to each person until no one knows what's true. It's all part of the same tired pattern. Kody and Robyn drag out every decision until everyone else is exhausted enough to capitulate. That's not poor communication, it's deliberate attrition. They call him the Kody roller coaster for a reason. He drags everyone through endless emotional loops before landing, inevitably, on the simplest answer he could have given months earlier. But then again, that wouldn't be nearly as entertaining. For him, at least. They built their dream home on the ashes of their family and still wonder why it feels empty. In their desperate quest to win the family fallout, Kody and Robyn Brown have managed to secure precisely what they deserve. A hollow kingdom built on manipulation, self-delusion, and a staggering lack of self-awareness. Kody, forever proud of his own cleverness, smugly cleared out the family accounts to fund assets. A transparent maneuver to ensure the original three wives got nothing. Robyn, meanwhile, embarked on her own spree of indulgence, spending freely through the pandemic as if retail therapy could buy her a personality. Together, they stalled, confused, and twisted the Coyote Pass situation into such a tangle that they likely assumed Janelle and Mary would simply surrender. For a time, it almost worked. Kody leveraged his name on every document to qualify for the new house, believing he'd outsmarted everyone. Yet what did they actually gain? Stuff. Expensive, gaudy, joyless stuff. Their mansion, an over-decorated shrine to bad taste and delusion, is filled with hideous jewelry, mismatched art, and a suffocating sense of misery. They own things, but not connection. They have walls, but no warmth. Even tragedy, like the heartbreaking loss of Garrison, couldn't jolt them into self-reflection. Their empire is built on isolation, and it shows. Meanwhile, the women they discarded have found what Kody and Robyn never could: peace, purpose, and genuine happiness. Christine rebuilt her life from the ground up, finding love, laughter, and a partner who supports her adventures rather than stifles them. She lives freely, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, radiating the joy that used to be absent from every Brown family scene. Janelle, too, is thriving. North Carolina has become her sanctuary. She's surrounded by family, building her dream home without compromise or control. She travels, smiles easily, and heals, surrounded by love rather than ego. The contrast couldn't be sharper. While Robyn drowns in performative sadness, Janelle glows with quiet resilience.
Mary, long the most hesitant to break free, eventually saw through the fog of manipulation that the pandemic so clearly illuminated. She escaped, albeit without a grand plan, and found steady ground in friendship and hard truths. Though her relationships with the children may be limited, she now stands among people who see her worth beyond what she could offer to Kody's fragile ego. And then there's the tragic comedy of Kody and Robyn's current existence. They feed off each other's grievances, convincing themselves they are victims of disloyalty rather than architects of their own downfall. They gossip, they rationalize, and they call it righteousness. Misery, after all, loves company, and they have that in abundance. They can buy a bigger house, but they can't purchase likability. They can hoard possessions, but not affection. Every attempt to project happiness feels as contrived as the decor around them. Robyn remains a portrait of selfishness and artifice. Kody, a puffed-up caricature of masculinity who mistakes control for leadership. So when Kody laments his loneliness in that oversized McMansion, the irony writes itself. He deserves to be lonely. After all, he spent years ensuring that anyone capable of loving him would eventually have no reason left to stay. Their financial reckoning will come, as it always does for people who mistake possessions for fulfillment. But the real price has already been paid, in love lost, respect squandered, and a legacy that's turned into a cautionary tale. The Browns' former patriarch and his self-appointed soulmate have everything they schemed for, and nothing of value to show for it. Once upon a time, Kody Brown cared. Then Vegas happened, and that version of him never came back. There was once a version of Kody Brown who appeared to care, deeply, even tenderly, about his children. Rewatching the earlier seasons of Sister Wives offers the unsettling contrast between that man and the embittered caricature who now snarls his way through confessionals. Season 8 captures the last gasp of that former self. When Kody and the family visited Maddie at college, the scene played like a wholesome family postcard. Laughter, warmth, the awkward excitement of a daughter standing on her own. Spotting Maddie's near-empty fridge, Kody hurried to the RV to gather bags of food for her. It was a small gesture but meaningful, the act of a father who noticed, who cared, who showed up. Somewhere between that moment and his current tirades on national television, that man disappeared. Maddie's tears today make perfect sense. She used to have a father who made an effort. Now she has a public antagonist who dissects his children's loyalties for an audience. Somewhere in Las Vegas, Kody's personality hardened into resentment. The shift coincided conveniently with his expulsion from the church, a turning point that seems to have stripped him of both structure and self-control. Once his religious justification for plural marriage evaporated, he appeared to realize he didn't particularly want the other wives anyway. COVID merely provided the excuse to retreat into the cocoon of monogamy he'd been craving all along. The theory that hormones, or steroids, played a role in this transformation is almost too fitting. The volatility, the bursts of ego, the puffed-up bravado, it's textbook. But chemical imbalance alone doesn't explain the corrosive influence of Robyn Brown, ever the whispering presence beside him. Her specialty has always been subtle sabotage, the gentle art of poisoning the well. Maddie's independence and refusal to defer to Robyn's authority made her an easy target. Robyn's thinly veiled jealousy of Kody's affection for Maddie echoes in later seasons, when she cast Aspen's straightforward conversation with her father as confrontational. It's a familiar pattern. When Robyn feels sidelined, she rewrites the narrative to punish the competition.
Then there's Kody's newfound hobby of publicly humiliating his family. His televised rants against his children and former wives are the kind of wounds that never quite scab over. Even if reconciliation someday occurs, his public contempt has destroyed the illusion of private loyalty. Worse still, his older children now watch him perform Father of the Year routines for Robyn's kids. Proof that the tenderness he once gave them was not lost, merely redirected. As for that once touching bag of RV groceries, one might argue it was more performative than paternal. Kody could have simply taken Maddie to a store and bought her actual food, but generosity that requires a receipt has never been his strong suit. Even in his supposed acts of care, there was a whiff of self-congratulation. Ultimately, what fractured the bond between Kody and Maddie wasn't geography or circumstance. It was the demand for loyalty over integrity. He expected her to choose him over her mother, to validate his delusions, to follow him to Flagstaff in symbolic obedience. When she didn't, he rewrote her independence as betrayal. Kody insists he wants respect, but what he truly craves is submission. The only thing that's plural about him now is the number of bridges he's burned.
They said Robyn's adoption was about family unity.
But what if it was actually a celestial power grab disguised as motherhood? The Brown family's celestial ambitions have always had a faint odor of red tape, and Robyn's push for Kody to adopt her children only made it stronger. On the surface, it looked like a tender act of unity. In reality, it was an extraordinary fusion of theology, ego, and courtroom strategy. Some observers point to the Latter-day Saint concept of celestial families as the real motivation. Within that belief system, sealing a family in the temple ensures they remain bound together in eternity, a sort of divine family contract with lifetime renewal benefits. For someone like Robyn, already tethered to a different man through her first marriage, that presented a cosmic logistical problem. She wanted her children sealed to the man she was currently orbiting. Hence the urgency for adoption, legal paperwork to match the heavenly hierarchy. Even Mary's emotional breakdown over not wanting to rip Robyn's kids away from her for time and eternity suddenly makes more sense. What seemed like melodrama might have been genuine existential dread, a celestial custody battle of infinite duration. Yet, the religious rationale starts to wobble under scrutiny. The AUB, Apostolic United Brethren, like the mainstream LDS church it splintered from, prizes patriarchal authority so tightly it's hard to imagine a woman unilaterally unsealing her children from one father and resealing them to another without ecclesiastical interference. And that's before even tackling the cosmic logistics. If every righteous man gets his own planet in the afterlife, how exactly do families coexist? Does everyone commute between planets to attend eternal family dinners? The celestial real estate plan collapses under its own theological weight.
Then comes the less divine, more terrestrial explanation, Robyn's legal motives. Her pattern of relocating her children from Wyoming to southern Utah, then northern Utah, and finally Nevada, coincided neatly with diminishing her ex-husband's access. Joint custody, yes, but every state line moved the goalposts further. Even if he owed child support, which she suggested, visitation and financial responsibility are separate matters. Had he chosen to fight, the courts might have looked unfavorably on her serial relocations. Yet he didn't. Whether out of privacy or exhaustion, he let it go, and she won. By the time the adoption took place, it was televised for the nation, a glossy, orchestrated moment that likely left her children with little agency. The result wasn't just a new legal surname, but a public severing of their paternal link, broadcast under the guise of family unity. Ironically, for all the theological posturing, the celestial arithmetic doesn't favor Robyn or Kody.
Their relationship began with infidelity by the church's own moral math. If the doctrine holds true, Kody's pre-engagement kisses with Robyn, while still legally married to 3 other women, were acts of adultery. In other words, he may have forfeited his shot at godhood altogether. No planet, no eternal kingdom. Just Robyn presiding over her lonely celestial acreage, while Kody spends eternity pounding on the pearly gates insisting he was misunderstood. So perhaps the adoption wasn't about heaven at all. Maybe it was simply about control of names, narratives, and networks of loyalty, all in this life rather than the next. The celestial family might sound divine, but for the Browns, it's just another family court with better lighting. Nothing exposes a fake leader faster than real pressure, and Kody Brown folded instantly. Once again, Kody Brown reminds everyone that it's his world. We're all just unfortunate extras passing through it. On Special Forces' World's Toughest Test, Kody's self-importance reached new, bewildering heights. When asked about qualifications, Brianna calmly replies that she's a podcaster. Kody, with all the gravitas of a man who's achieved precisely nothing of substance, smirks, "That's all?" The irony writes itself. What exactly are his qualifications? Marrying multiple women and driving them all to the brink? When faced with a challenge that required rescuing a casualty, Kody's instinct was not bravery but flight. His grand command, "Leave him, let's go." This, of course, was the precise opposite of the mission's objective. The task was to get the casualty out, yet Kody, panic-stricken, manic, and spectacularly oblivious, chose cowardice as strategy. It's a wonder he hasn't been formally recognized as a military genius for inventing abandon the injured tactics. And naturally, he assumed leadership without invitation, because he's male and therefore, in his mind, ordained to take charge. "Let's go, ladies," he barked, as if gender alone qualified him to lead. The result? A team failure, courtesy of Captain Ego.
This isn't a one-off incident. It's a recurring theme in the Kody Brown playbook: assume authority, evade responsibility, and collapse under minimal pressure. His behavior mirrors past moments of incompetence, like during Dayton's ATV accident, where his son Hunter held things together, literally and figuratively, while Kody, the adult in charge, did nothing. Leadership is not his gift. Petulance is. This is the same man who once lamented a 99-degree temperature as though he were on his deathbed. The audacity of questioning others' qualifications is laughable coming from someone whose resume reads, reality TV personality, occasional sign seller, estranged father of multiple children, and self-proclaimed patriarch of chaos. One could argue that podcasters work harder and achieve more coherence in an hour than Kody does in an entire season of self-promotion. To make matters worse, his behavior during the exercise wasn't merely useless, it was invasive. As the team rushed into a building, he placed his hand on the back of the woman in front of him, a gesture both unnecessary and patronizing. The perpetual need to assert dominance, physical or otherwise, oozes from every interaction. Kody's greatest talent has always been mistaking arrogance for authority. Watching him crumble under actual pressure exposes the truth long hidden beneath his bombast. He's not a leader, not a soldier, and certainly not the hero of any story, except the one playing nonstop in his own head. If you caught that secondhand embarrassment too, hit subscribe before it fades.